Hello, everybody. Are you still there? Stan, are you there? Hi, Stan. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me? I don't hear anything. Okay, how about now? Can you hear me? Come in, Stan. Hello, Stan.
I'm here.
And okay, how about now?
Loud and clear.
Okay, I apologize. My watch stopped at a little after 8. So
You never have to apologize to me. I'm
all right.
the student, you're the teacher.
Was anybody else on?
No.
No, okay, good. So I thank you for your understanding. All right, let's jump right in. We are on 13A. I think we're right at the top. Are we on 13A? Let's see. Yes, right at the top. The Amar Ravacha Bar Yaakov, first line. Okay, so we're just continuing to discuss these celestial matters. The Amar Ravacha Bar Yaakov, Ravacha said, Od Rakia Chad Yesh Lamam Mirashe HaChayos. There's one more heaven above the heads of the Chayos, which is one of the levels, and it implies here that that's the 7th level because there's one more above it. So there's an 8th level. Udmus al Rashe HaChaya Rakia Kain HaKerach Hanara. This is from Ezekiel's vision. There was an image on the heads or above the Chaya, a heaven that is like the color of terrible ice. So Gemara says, up till this point, you can talk about this. Don't delve any further into this matter. In other words, this is like you've tripped a warning signal here. Don't talk about anything above the 7th heaven. Shekain Kazu was Sefer Ben Sira, as it's written in the apocryphal book of Ben Sira. So that which is too wondrous for you, don't ask. And don't delve into something which is covered from you. And only understand or contemplate what you have been allowed to. And you have no business dealing with these esoteric matters. So we're not going to discuss anymore the 8th heaven. Too exalted for us. Tanya, Tanya Brisa, Amar Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Rabbi Yochanan said, Matshuva heshivatu baskal osa rasha. What answer did the heavenly voice give to that wicked person? Apparently, the references to Nebuchadnezzar, the emperor who destroyed the Assyrian emperor who destroyed the first temple. B'shasha Amar, at the time that he said, El b'mase'av Adam el Elyon, I will rise above the clouds and I will make myself like the Most High. So he's abrogating for himself the role of the divine. So a heavenly voice comes and tells him, Rasha ben benoshel Nimrod harasha, you wicked person, son of a wicked person, descendant of Nimrod, the wicked Nimrod, the biblical figure from the early Genesis. Shahimrid kol ha'olam kulo of Malchuso, who caused the entire world to rebel against him. Kamashnoso shalada. How long does a person live? Shivim shana, 70 years average. Shanemar yemesha same boy shivim shana. Proof text is from Psalms. The days of our lives are 70 years. Vuros shvanim shana are those who are particularly strong or aged, can live to 80 years. V'halomina aretz ve'lorokia malach chamesh me'al shana. You say, Nebuchadnezzar, that you want to rise above the heavens. Well, how far is that? It's 500 years travel from the earth to the sky. That's the first level of the heavens. And that first level of heavens is 500 years more journey. And so too with all 7 levels of the heavens. And above the 7th heaven are the Chayos, these celestial beings. And how so far we're up to what, like 7 plus the distance between them, and each one says like 14 times 500 years. So we're looking at like already 7,000 years travel. Ragle hachayos keneged kulam, and then there's another 14,000 years travel that are the distance of the feet, that are the legs of the chayos. Karsule hachayos keneged kulam, and then no, it was the feet. So now the ankles is another 28,000, so we're up to 56,000 if I'm counting right. Shoke hachayos keneged kulan, another 56,000 for the legs So we're 112,000 years travel. Rechuve hachayos connected kulan. Then the middle part of the legs is another 112,000. That's 224. Yarche hachayos connected kulan, 448 for the including the thighs. Gufe hachayos connected kulan, and the torso is another 448. So that's 896,000 years journey to get to the top of the torso. Savari hachayos connected kulan, then the neck is another 900. I'm losing the thread already. So we're almost 2 million. Rashi hachayos connected kulan, another 2 million for the heads of the chayos. Karne hachayos connected kulan, so now we're up to 8 million with the horns. Lamalaman kisei hakavod. So it's like 8 million years journey to get to the top of the chayos. And then you get to the throne of glory, God's throne of glory. And we do it again. Raglai kisei hakavod connected kulan, another 8 million years journey for the legs, the feet of the throne of glory. So we're up to 16 million. Kisei hakavod connected kulan. The throne itself is another 16 million. That's 32 million. Melech el chai v'kayim ram v'nisa shochan elayim. Then after 32 million years journey, you get to God Himself, as it were. You think you're gonna reach God's place. It's like you're only gonna live 70 years, and you need to live what do we say, like 32 million years to even get there. And that probably doesn't count eating and sleeping. Okay. So ach el shaol turad el yaksei bar. What actually is going to happen to you is you're going to descend to the grave. You'll die before you even get started. Okay, so now we're back to the Mishnah. That said, so far we've been talking about studying the Maseh Bereshis, the creation of the world, the universe. Now we're talking about Merkaba, which is the chariot mysticism, and it's called chariot mysticism because the chariots figure in the visions of Ezekiel and Isaiah, I think, in their descriptions of their celestial visions. Rabbi Chia said, so we said that you can't, the Mishnah said you can't teach that to even one person. So Rabbi Chia said, you can kind of, give the categories or the titles. You can teach the headings, but you can't teach the details. Rabbi Zera, in most Rashi Prakim El based. Zera says you can't even teach the titles, the headings, except to someone who is like the leader, the head of the court. Well, or to anyone whose heart worries within it. What does that mean? Worries within him? I think I understand it to mean like he's a serious person. He doesn't approach these things lightly. Some say that Rav Zera's statement was, V'hu shalibo doeg b'kirbo. Not that the head of the court or anybody who's serious, but the head of the court, if he is a serious person. So it's more restrictive. Rav Ami says, and most Torah you can only teach the secret esoteric things of the Torah to someone with the following 5 characteristics. Sar chamishim, he has to be a captain of 50. So in other words, he's like the upper 2% of the population. This models when Jethro told Moses how to choose judges. He said, you gotta kind of pick your people. Like there's some people that can be in charge of 50 and some people can be in charge of 100. It's a hierarchy, right? Like a hierarchy of courts. It's like we have today, right? You have local courts and state courts and appeal courts and federal courts and the federal appeal courts and the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is like 9 people out of 350 million, right? So it's that's 1 per whatever it is, 45 million, etc. So what we're saying is like the person has to be at least in the top 2%. And Nesupanim, he has to be someone who's respected. Yoetz, he has to be someone who can advise, or who does advise other people. V'chacham, Charashim, and teacher of the wise, Unavon Lachash, and someone who can understand quiet or mysterious things. Rabbi Ami said, you can't teach Torah to an idol worshiper. When in Psalms, we say that God did all these things for the people of Israel, but he didn't do so for other nations, nor did he reveal or let them know his statutes. So Torah is the statutes. You can't teach that to idolaters. Rabbi Yochanan said to Rabbi Elazar, let me teach you about this Merkava mysticism. Amarle, he said, Lo kashai, I'm too young, I'm not old enough. Kikash, then he got older. Nach Rabbi Yochanan, it was too late. Rabbi Yochanan died. So he couldn't read them anymore. Ravasi said, I'll teach you. Ravasi said, I'll teach you. Amarle, he said, Izakai, Gemirta me Rabbi Yochanan Rabach. No, he said, I missed my chance. If I were worthy, then Rabbi Yochanan I would have ended up learning from Rabbi Yochanan. So I don't want to learn from you. I feel like I missed my chance, or maybe it's a message to me that I shouldn't be learning this stuff. Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Yosef was studying Merkava mysticism. And the sages of Pumbedisa, that's an academy in Babylonia, were studying the Bereshis, were studying the cosmology. Amrle. So they said to Rabbi Yosef, like we already learned the Bereshis stuff, let you teach us the chariot stuff. He said, okay, I'll do that if you teach me the Bereshis stuff. So they taught him the Bereshis stuff. Then he said to them, now it's your turn, teach us the chariot stuff. He said to them, we learned in the Brisa about these things that honey and milk are under your tongue. That things that are sweet as honey and milk, they should stay under your tongue. In other words, like these things are really special, the chariot stuff, and I'm not teaching it to you after all. I'm keeping it to myself. Rabbi Avo said actually the same story, but it was a different proof text. Kevasim lilavushecha. Let lambs be your clothing. Things that are the first, so it's a play on words, kevesh, which is a lamb, and kevesh, which is a furnace. So things that are the furnace of the world. In other words, that's or maybe kevesh could mean mystery, but whatever. These things that are the essence of the world, they should stay concealed under your clothes, like don't reveal them. So Amrlai, so they said to him, Tanina Buhu ad Vayomer Lai Ben Adam. We already know some of it. We know the first chapter of Ezekiel. Like we're already halfway there. So just teach us the rest. He said, Hey, Master Merkava. So you know everything already. That's where all the good stuff is in the first chapter of Ezekiel. So they asked him, Brisa says, what is chariot mysticism? In other words, how far into the book of Ezekiel? Rabbi Yomer ad Va'era Basra. Until the last vision of Ezekiel's, which is the end of the first chapter, the second last verse in the first chapter. Rabbi Yitzchak Omer ad HaChashmal. Rabbi Yitzchak says until an earlier, the third word of that verse, which the word is chashmal, which in modern Hebrew actually means electricity, but I don't even know how to translate it in this biblical vision. It's one of these celestial beings, but in either case, these limits are these statements that the essence of the Merkava vision ends before the end of the first chapter. So why does he say that? Why do they refer to as the end of the first chapter as the end of the main part of the chariot vision? So Ava Aram Magmarina. So Gemara explains that until the second last verse, that's where you can teach the Merkava mysticism. But the very end of the chapter, from there till the end of the chapter, that's the really deep stuff. That you can only teach the headings. Some explain the other, or you could say that until the second last verse, you can only teach the headings. From there on, the last two verses, if he is wise and can understand, can kind of reach his own conclusions, then you can teach. But if he's not that wise, then you can't teach it at all, because you'll just leave him with incomplete understanding. So the Gemara says, wait a minute, this business called Chashmal, which is the very end of the vision of the first chapter of Ezekiel, are you allowed to even teach the headings? Are you allowed to teach it at all? There was a young man who tried to teach about the word Chashmal. He was consumed by fire. Because he was young. He was too young to be teaching this stuff. You have to be more mature. Someone who's more mature, then he's allowed to teach about the Chashmal, whatever that is. I'm too young to, so still apparently, because I don't know what it is. Amar Yehuda says, however, that person this young man who taught improperly and was consumed by fire, he still remember him well. His name was Hananiah ben Chizkiah. If not for him, Nigna Sefer Yecheskel, the whole book of Ezekiel would have been concealed. Shahayu Devar Sosra Divrei Torah, because Ezekiel is full of things that appear to contradict the Torah. So, for example, the most well-known example is there's a chapter in Ezekiel which describes the role of the Kohanim in the temple, and there are things that directly contradict the Torah's rules for how Kohanim served in the temple. So what did he do? So they didn't want to canonize the book of Ezekiel. They wanted to instead to bury it. So what did he do? They brought him up 300 barrels of oil to his study, so to use for fuel, for candlelight, I guess. And he sat there, until he basically tried to work out the contradictions until he succeeded. So he was an expert in the book of Ezekiel. And that's why he was trying to explain Chashmal, but still he was consumed by fire for doing so. Tanarabanan, rabbis taught a similar story. There was a young child. He got hold of the book of Ezekiel in his teacher's house. And this young child was trying to understand what Chashmal is. And a fire from Chashmal, which is somewhere in the heavens, came and burned him. And so they wanted to, they saw it was a dangerous book. They wanted to bury it. So Hanan said to them, what? This is not so dangerous. This kid was, smart enough, really an exceptional case, smart enough to start delving into Chashmal, but there isn't really a danger for the average child. My Chashmal. Now the Gemara is going to say, well, okay, what is Chashmal? Now, I think we better put on our asbestos suits before we go any further. But Amar Yehuda says, Chayos Eish Mamalos. So it's a play on words. Chashmal. So Chayos Eish as the sound, and Mal from the Malalos. So Chayos, speaking fire, basically, is the play on words. From Asnisa Tana, in the Mishnah and the Brisa we taught, Itim Chashos, Itim Mamalos. Chash Mal. Sometimes they're chash, sometimes they're quiet, sometimes mal, sometimes they speak. What does that mean? B'shasha dibur yosem piyakadosh baruch hu chashos. While God is speaking, they're quiet. B'shasha and dibur yosem piyakadosh baruch hu malos. When God is silent, they speak. That seems like good manners. The chayos ratzov v'shov kamari habazak. So now continuing to expand the end of the first chapter of Ezekiel. The chayos were rushing back and forth like the appearance of the bazak. So I was trying to understand what these are. Bazak, but chashmal, as I mentioned, is the modern Hebrew word for electricity. And if I remember correctly, Bazak is one of the electric supply companies in Israel. So my Ratzovashov, so it doesn't mean they were rushing back and forth. They're like flame that, that like some that bursts out of a furnace. If you have a fireplace or a furnace or whatever that's really hot, then the fire will sometimes, kind of leap out, and sometimes it will contract a little. My Kamaraya Bazak, what does it mean, like the appearance of Bazak? Yossi says, that's like fire that comes out of the cracks of an earthenware like utensil that's made for furnaces. Okay, so the beginning of this chapter of Ezekiel, of the vision, Ezekiel says, I looked and there was a storm coming from the north. The north is where, of course, about the reference to Babylon. Anan gadol ve'esh mislakachas, there was a big cloud, and fire was flashing within it. V'nogalo misaviv, there was an aura around it. Mitocha ke'en hachashmal mitocha esh, and within it there was kind of a chashmal in the fire. Leichanazal. So this wind, where did it go? From Babylon. This is the currents of the conquest of Nebuchadnezzar, the emperor, the wicked. Why was this all necessary? Like Israel was conquered and was exiled by Nebuchadnezzar, not just by some run-of-the-mill local potentate, but by the world emperor, like by
world class general.
Yeah. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, so God says, what caused me to be this kind of an assistant to this idol worshiper? In other words, why do I have to be supporting Nebuchadnezzar and his conquest of Israel? I blame the Jewish people's sins because they sinned, so I have to exile them, so I need to employ an idol worshiper to do so. So Ezekiel sees the chayos. There was one wheel. Again, ofan, I don't know what that is. It's often translated wheel. On the earth next to the chayos. So what does it mean that the chayos aren't on the earth? So there's this one angel that stands on the earth, and his head reaches to as far as the chayos, which, as we saw before, is a journey of 32 million years. Or no, that's all the way to
miles.
8 million years, or 4 million years, whatever it was. But Masnisatan, you have a brisa, Sandalphon Shema. The name of this angel is Sandalphon. By the way, he's the tallest of all the angels by a distance of 500 years journey. And he stands behind the chariot, and he weaves crowns for his creator. Aini, is that true that he weaves crowns for his creator? Isaiah writes, blessed is the glory of God from his place. That means no one knows where his place is. So how does this crown maker know what to do with the crown? So the Amar Shem Ataga, he doesn't know where God is, but he casts a spell on it, as it were. He pronounces God's name on it. And the crown knows where to go, but the angel doesn't know where that is. Amar Rava said, Kol Shara Yechezkel Yeshaya. Everything that Ezekiel saw, Isaiah had already seen. As I mentioned, Isaiah also had mystical visions, right? Ezekiel's are more detailed, but the Gemara is saying that Isaiah saw this also, even though he didn't describe it in such fantastical terms. What is Ezekiel like? He's like a villager that one day gets to see the king. Isaiah is like a city boy who gets to see the king, so he's not so impressed. The city boy he's seen things, right? He's seen glory, and he's seen, all the pomp and circumstance of a city. So when he sees the king, it's not as, he doesn't describe it in such fantastical terms. The village boy who's never seen anything outside of his farm, when he sees the king, he's overwhelmed. He's describing everything, right? I have a joke I'll tell you after this. Of the village boy. Amar Reish Lakish says, "My dechsiv, Asher Hashem Chagigah." I will sing. This is from the Song of the Sea, the Red Sea, the crossing of the Red Sea. Asher Hashem Chagigah. I will sing to God, for he's very exalted. Shir L'Misha Miskal Agam. It's a song to the one who is exalted upon the exalted one. So like the top. The Amar, for we had said, Melech Shabachayos Ari, the king of the animals is the lion. Melech Shababahemos Shor, the king of the domestic animals is the ox. Melech Shabaophos Nesha, the king of the birds is the eagle. Adam Miskal, and man is, considers himself greater than all of these creatures. So, and God exalts himself on all of us and on the whole world. What we're trying to get at here, I don't know. Now we're going to continue with Ezekiel. One verse says, the appearance of their faces. There was a human face, a lion's face to the right of the four of them. The left side was an ox's face. And there was the fourth one was eagle. It also says that each one had four faces. One was the crew, the cherub. One was the human. The third one was the lion, and the fourth one was the eagle. The ox isn't counted. In this one, we have the cherub as the fourth one. So how do you reconcile that? Rish Lakish answered, Ezekiel asked for God for mercy for the ox. In other words, he asked for the ox to be removed from this vision. And so God transformed it into a cherub. What was Ezekiel's idea? God, how can you have the ox? The ox it reminds one of the golden calf, right? There's a lot of rules about the temple in Yom Kippur. It's like you can't wear, and I think even in contemporary times, you're not supposed to wear gold on Yom Kippur because that evokes the memory of the sin of the golden calf, right? So we don't want to, have that stain always, uppermost in mind. So like get the ox out of there. So God said, fine, I'll put a cherub in there instead. My group, what's a cherub? I'm Rabbi Avo says Kuravia. Ravia in Aramaic is a child, right? Kiruv, like a child. Shekain b'Babel, currently in Ravia. In Babylonia, that's the word for a child, Ravia. So Kiruv is Kiravia. It's like the image of something that looks like a young person. Wait, the second description was like one face was a Kruv, and the other cherub, and the other was a man. Right, so that's the same thing. Like a young person is a person, right? So it appears that the cherub is something other than human. The third was a lion, the fourth was an eagle. So Hainu Pnei Kruv, Hainu Pnei Adam. So it appears that two of those are the same. So that can't be. So Mara says, Ape Rav, Ape Zitra. Yeah, it can be. An old person looks different than a young person, right? You had two human faces, an old one and a young one. Okay, now we're looking for more contradictions. Each one had six wings. Each one has four wings, four faces and four wings. So was it six or four? Well, Kashmir says no problem. When the temple was standing, then the angels were in their full glory with 6 wings. After the temple was destroyed, as it were, the Chayos had 2 wings removed. Hey, we now know which ones were removed. Hanan says, those which they praised God with. Here it says in Isaiah, it said like with 2 they would fly, and then they called out to each other, holy, holy, holy is God. And it's also written, can you cast your eyes on it and it's gone. So it appears that Ta'if means flying, and those were the wings with which they praised God, or which they used when they praised God. So those were the ones that were removed. The rabbis say, no, the wings that were removed were the ones that covered their legs. Shenamar, proof text, for Aglayim Regli Yeshara, they had straight legs. Now, if you could see the legs, that must be that the wings that were removed were the ones covering the legs. And now Ezekiel could see the leg, the straight leg. If not, how would he know? One says, no, not necessarily. Maybe they flapped the wings. Maybe they still had the leg wings, but they flapped them, and they were momentarily revealed. If you don't say that, how could Ezekiel say that he saw that some of the faces were human faces? So you're saying that the wings above the face were still there. So how did he see the face? So it must be they flapped their wings and he saw the face. Right? You could say the same thing about the feet. They flapped and we saw them. It could be the same with the legs. So Gemara says, wait, that's so. Now I understand that they would use, open their wings and reveal their faces. That's normal. But people, they would be more modest about revealing their legs, right? So you could still say that now they're missing their leg wings. That's how we could see the legs. Okay, let's stop here. It's after 9 o'clock already. I gotta go. So we're not quite at the end of the page, but maybe we'll pick up here tomorrow.
Tell me the joke.
Okay.
If you care to.
So, this family, they lived their whole life on the farm. They've never been to the city. One day they had the chance to go to the city. So they go to the city and they go to a mall and never see anything like it. It's so grand and everything. And they see an elevator, but they don't know what it is. And they're looking at it. These steel doors, they open up, they close, the lights go up, what different numbers light up. It opens again. So one time it opened and they're staring at it, trying to understand it. So it opens and this beautiful young woman comes by and she gets in the elevator. The doors close, lights flash. A few minutes later, the door is open again. And sorry, I said it wrong. An old woman walks in. And a few minutes later, the doors open again, and this beautiful young woman walks out. And the father says to the son, "Go get your mother."
That's not bad, Dov. That's not bad at all. With that, we'll pick up tomorrow.
Have a good day.
That's not bad.